Hey,
What?
I need you to go to town for me.
It's good to be home.
Once upon a time, there was a little house way out in the country. She was a pretty little house, and she was so strong and well built. The man who built her said, "This little house shall never be sold, and she will live to see our great-great-grandchildren's great-great-grandchildren living in her." The little house was very happy as she sat on the hill. She watched the sun rise in the morning, and she watched the sunset in the evening. Day followed day, each one a little different from the one before, but the little house stayed just the same. In the night, she watched the moon grow, and when there was no moon, she watched the stars. Way off in the distance, she could see the lights of the city. The little house was curious about the city, and she wondered what it would be like to live there. In the spring, the days grew longer and the sun warmer. She waited for the first robin to return from the south. She watched the grass turn green. She watched the children playing in the brook. In the long summer days, she sat in the sun and watched the trees cover themselves with leaves and the white daisies cover the hill. In the fall, she watched the first frost turn the leaves to bright yellow and orange and red. She watched the harvest gathered and the apples picked. In the winter, she watched the children coasting and skating. Year followed year. The apple trees grew old and new ones were planted. The children grew up and went away to the city. One day, the little house was surprised to see a horseless carriage coming down the winding country road. Pretty soon along came a steam shovel and dug a road through the hill. After a while, the road was done. Everyone and everything moved much faster now than before. More roads were made, and the countryside was divided into lots. More houses and bigger houses spread over the land and crowded the little house. No one wanted to live in her and take care of her anymore, so she just stayed and watched. Now it was not so quiet and peaceful at night. This must be living in the city, thought the little house, and she didn't know whether she liked it or not. Pretty soon there was an elevated train going back and forth above the little house. The noise was so loud that it shook the little house. Now she couldn't tell when spring came, or summer, or fall, or winter. It all seemed about the same. People were moving faster and faster. No one noticed the little house anymore. Pretty soon they tore down the buildings around the little house. They started building up and up. They built up 25 stories on one side and 35 stories on the other. The little house was very sad and lonely. Her paint was cracked and dirty. She looked shabby, though she was just as good a house as ever underneath. Then one fine morning in spring, along came the great-great-granddaughter of the man who built the little house so well. She saw the shabby little house, but she didn't hurry by. She said to her husband, "That little house looks just like the little house my grandmother lived in when she was a little girl. Only that little house is way out in the country, on a hill covered with daisies." They found out it was the very same house, so they jacked up the little house and put her on wheels. Traffic was held up for hours as they slowly moved her out of the city. They rolled along the big road, and they rolled along the little roads, until they were way out in the country. They tried the little house here, they tried her there, until finally they saw a little hill in the middle of a field. "There," said the great-great-granddaughter, "that's just the place." "Yes, it is," thought the little house to herself, and slowly they moved the house from the road to the hill. As the little house settled down, she smiled happily. Once again, she could watch the sun and moon and stars. Once again, she could watch spring and summer and fall and winter come and go. Once again she was lived in and taken care of. Never again would she be curious about the city. Never again would she want to live there. The stars twinkled above her. A new moon was coming up. It was spring, and all was quiet and peaceful in the country.